Hello, this is Stanley Sandler, host of the program, the podcast, Stan the History Man. I'm a history professor, retired after many years teaching history at colleges and universities in the US and Canada, and special interest in technology, military technology, that sort of thing. What I want to talk today, well, I was watching the Bonnie and Clyde. They had a special on the death of Bonnie and Clyde. And of course, they showed their bullet riddled car. And I just thought, well, I've got a model just like that. And I looked in my model collection, and this is what I found. This is a 1934 Ford V8, and it looks exactly like the car that Bonnie and Clyde were gunned to death in. In a case you almost think is overkill. I mean, the deputies actually ran out of ammunition by the time they're finished ventilating the car. But here's the interesting thing about this model. This is not a Airfix model or popular American plastic models of today. No, it's a Russian model car, and it's called the GAZ, GAZ, for gas, I presume. And it is the story behind the real GAZ is the Russians had a not very much of an automobile industry before the war, just made a few luxury cars, and mostly based on French models anyway. And the communists began to feel, well, first of all, we need a military machine, military tank construction, so on. And so they put a lot of money into that, and they said, well, look, let's have some automobiles as well. Well, the communist automobile industry was, they said, was nothing much to begin with. And with the Civil War and then the forced feminization in the Ukraine, it was not not until later in the 30s that they actually came out and started making automobiles. Now, Russian automobiles, you don't just go into a store and say, comrade, I'd like to have an automobile, and how much is that, and so on. No. You even after when fairly good times like the 1960s, you put in an order, and it would take about 10 years to get the car. And you didn't say what kind of color you wanted. They just, whatever you got, the next color in the line with green, blue, yellow, whatever, you got that as well. And the cars weren't very good either. As a matter of fact, Stalin realized how bad the products of the Soviet Union auto industry were, that he would get the dies from the United States. I think the motors were almost always Russian made, but the body and everything were from the United States. They got the stamping dies. And Stalin really liked Packards. I wish I had a model of a Packard right now, pre-war Packard. He got the whole car. Then in fact, sometimes you'd see one of these Packard, Russian Packards, and some of the parts would say Packard Motor Company. But that was only for the top doors. That would be for Stalin, Molotov, or Shilov, whatever. And what they did was they would change like the chrome. I think the one, I'm positive, one of the Russian cars, luxury cars, an extra bar of chrome in the front of it to distinguish it from the capitalist Packard. But he always had liked Packards. Even when they started to make cars of their own, luxury cars of their own, they still had that Packard look. The name of it was ZIS, which factory for Stalin, ZIS. I forget the Russian word for factory. And then after Stalin died, they called it ZIM, factory for named after Molotov. Well, but even the unexpensive, no, I can't say unexpensive, there were no discounts or anything, or weekend sale, yearly end sales or anything like that. But the other cars, like the 34 GAZ, they were used for the party leaders, the head of perhaps a very good scientist, perhaps who's designed the right kind of weapon, whatever. Doctors who tended after the nomenclature. And that's an interesting point, too, because it's supposed to be a land just of workers and peasants. Well, you had no class society. Well, they had very much class society called the nomenclatura. And they not only had better salaries, but they had better apartments. They wouldn't own them, of course. That would be, capitalistic. But they had them for a lifetime. They had the automobiles, although usually they were just the actual ownership still belonged to the state, but they had the use of them. The generals, for example, would get they might get a ZIS if they're the top general, or a ZIM, but unlike in the United States, our generals get cars too, but your wife can't. The American generals' wives can't use them to go shopping, but Russian generals could do that. So they even have a soldier driving and chauffeuring them around. So there really was a very strong class. Oh, they also had special stores. When you go in a Russian food store, well, you might be able to get bread, sauerkraut, but you go into one of these nomenclatura stores, well, you get French delicacies, you get all kinds of very good food. They would not even accept Russian money in those stores. Swiss francs, American dollars, British pounds, whatever, that's okay. So it really was a very, very rigid and differentiating caste society there, the nomenclatura and the rest. But it certainly shows in the automobiles. Now, in more recent times, there's a popular television program, English program that dealt with the cars of foreign countries, and they go and drive them. And the Soviet cars or communist cars made from communist countries were pretty bad. They just did not reach our technology at all. As a matter of fact, who buys a Russian car today with the communists long gone? The Yugoslavian, the Yugo is considered to be the best of them, but it really wasn't a very good car. And people talk about Yugo, maybe, type of thing. I think it's pretty much an indication of the failure of the Soviet system, and yet how there was this yearning in so many ways to be like the West, especially amongst the nomenclature. So there it is. You have here the same kind of car that Bonnie and Clyde were shot up in. You have actually made in the model is made in the Soviet Union, and it describes as an example of a Soviet model. Well, this is after the Soviet era, of course. I should say one more thing about the model. It's kind of typical of the real thing, because they said that when they came out with these models at first, it was something like 200 pounds of lead were needed to fill in the joints, because the stamping facilities in Russia really weren't that good. Well, as I built this car, I had all kinds of putty to put in to fill in the gaps and everything. On the other hand, to be fair, there's a fantastic amount of detail. In the back, for example, there are these straps that you'd hang on to as the car went around a curve. All the instruments are there, just like not modeled, but like photographs of them, silk span. The seats are like are in great detail, and the details all over the place. And yet, to put it together, I really had to put an awful lot of plastic model putty. So, well, there you go. It's a little interesting sideshow of history. It's not earth-shattering or anything, but I thought you might be interested. Bonnie and Clyde and Soviet automobiles. Well, thanks for listening. And remember, on Saturdays, we have we encourage you to phone in then, and any particular questions that you might have. Well, thanks for listening. This is Dr. Sandler. Wishing you a good weekend, and I'll maybe talk to you. I will talk to you sometime next week. I'm not sure exactly. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.